Now we are going to go into details of how to record internal control system. And in going into details, it is important for us to know the advantages, the disadvantages, when to use which approach or method of recording internal control systems. They actually are better used in one occasion than the other, and that is why we are going to go into details of this video. We are going to look at the flow charting. We are going to look at the narrative notes, and we are going to look at the internal control questionnaire. We are going to start from the simplest, which is the narrative notes, to the most complicated, which is actually stands between flow charting and internal control questionnaire, because to use flow charting you must know how to use it. It requires some additional skill and know when to use it, and also questionnaire too. And immediately after, now we will be looking at the advantages and disadvantages of internal control questionnaire, and that is why we pick it out separately. If you are just joining us on GJAMES Associate, we really like that you subscribe, and if you've joined before and you are returning, please like, share, subscribe. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. So let's go into the details one after the other. My name is Gbenga Olatunji FCA, and we shall be doing it together to make it sweet, as one of my lecturer used to tell us then. Okay, when we are talking about narrative notes, it's actually the simplest of all methods of recording internal controls. So this method is where words are actually used to describe internal control systems that we observe, because we are talking now from the perspective of an auditor, and it could be your organization, you are an insider, or you are coming from outside to audit the organization. Either way, we are talking from these sides. Okay, so it's a narrative note, and they are normally appropriate for simple systems. Don't forget that when I started, I let us know that it can become complicated, and we need to use flow charting, and we need to use internal control questionnaire to address them. So, but for this simple system, narrative notes are okay. It's just like form of our jottings, jotting down our understanding of how the client we want to audit, or our organization. Maybe we are newcomer into the environment of our organization, and we want to know how really things are working there. So we make a descriptive notes or narrative notes. So on this very simple system. So for each system, the narrative notes needs to describe the following. So it should be as detailed as possible. So we need to know the function to be performed and who is responsible for performing them in the organization. It's part of what we ordinarily should record and jot down. Who performs what and what function does he or she perform? Then the documents they use in performing it or in recording those functions. We need to jot it down too. Their names. Don't forget that different organization has different names for similar documents. So you need to know which one are they calling it here. So you put the name down. Sequence of filing documents. Those are the processes. We need to jot down the processes of filing of or retrieval of information in the organization, and also types of accounting books that they are keeping. These are some of the things that we need to put down in our jottings or narrative notes as we are getting used to the organization, or they are telling us what and what they used to do. Of course, narrative notes has advantages. Of one prominent of among them is that it's simple to record and easy to understand. It's simple to record, you are just jotting, and it's easy to understand that if at all after you've jotted, another person can pick it up and read it and still understand it. I hope we understand. So it's easy to jot down and it's easy to understand. However, it has several practical applications and difficulties, which may include the following we need to know. It is difficult to make a note of change or changes in the system. Let's say you've written like 3 pages, and along the line, the person that was narrating to you, you get to know that there are some other things that affect what you've written before. So it's difficult to make changes to the notes, or everything just becomes, you understand. Okay, also, preparation of narrative notes for a complex system may take up a disproportionate amount of space and time, and that is why when I started, I let us know that narrative notes should be used for simple organizational structure, simple control system in place. When the internal control system becomes a bit robust and complicated, then simple narrative notes becomes unreasonable to use. Also, it may be difficult to see if part of the system has been missed out altogether. Because of what? Because we are just writing notes. We are just writing notes. So to pick points, we will need to go back and reread it again, over and over again. So these are some of the practical application and the difficulty that we will encounter using simple note. But you know what is the simplest of all, and you can easily use it and adapt it without any technical skill on anybody's part to adopt this method. So having gone through the narrative notes and the organizational charts, let's move on to flow charting. The flow charting and diagrammatical representation and presentation of internal control system. So flow charting, organizational chart, and the like, it provides a convenient way of describing the authority, the flow of authority, flow of responsibility, flow of approval and authorization, reporting relationship that exists in the organization. Flowcharting makes this so simple because they are grammatical representation of what is obtainable within the organization system. So it outlines a formal relationship that exists in an organization. However, it does not specify the precise duty of individual concerned. It does not specify the duty of individual concern, because majority of time flow charting involves diagrams, and there are different kinds of diagram, like this one that we are looking at on the dashboard. This is example of flow charting. Yes, that we are looking at right about now is example of flowcharting. So let me show us. See, that's the first flow, that's the second flow, that's the third flow. So if we are describing the process of this video recording now, we will be talking about, you put the narrative first, you flowchart the next process to be the flowchart and diagrammatical representation, and last but not the least, you put internal control questionnaire. So basically, this is how flowcharting actually works. Having said that, let us go to internal control questionnaire. Of course, the longest of them all is internal control questionnaire. Is the longest of them all, and to use it we must have understanding of questioning. Which question should come first? If we want to actually get to the root of the matter and to really understand, we must, questioning is actually a skill, and we have to develop our skill in that regards for us to be able to develop internal control questionnaire. Having said that, ICQ remains the longest used internal control assessment and recording technique, and its function is to highlight precisely and concisely the areas of strength and weakness of the internal control. Many times it's all about yes or no answer. That's the feedback we actually require. Is either yes or no, or sometimes they just need to put few words down to respond to ICQ, and that would be good. So a questionnaire is a standard pre-printed document. Of course, it could be electronic now. You can send an electronic questionnaire out now, and there are so many platforms now that you can use it. Some of them are even free. So they are pre-written, pre-printed, pre-documented, designed by the audit firm or the person that wants to have knowledge of the organization, so that it will not be cast in stone. And also it comprises a series of questions designed to determine whether discernible control are in place or not. So they are formulated to, so that there is one to cover, that is a question to cover each of the major transaction cycle. I want to believe we know transaction cycle now. If that is strange to us, please look us up on the audits playlist so that you can familiarize because of our time. So an ICQ will normally be used if the size and complexity of the client organization justifies it. Actually, between the ICQ and flow charting, I wouldn't really know which one can best fit complex situation. They actually both could be used. So it depends on actually the person that is designing or wants to use them, and which one he or she favors the most. Which one he or she favors the most. Like somebody like me on the field, I use questionnaires a lot. I use questionnaires a lot, and I flowchart during pre-audit meeting, and like I flowchart easily. Okay, so and you know what? There could be mixture of all these too. There could be mixture of all this. It's because it's just all about understanding the internal control systems and how it really works in the organization rather. So having completed an ICQ, a complete ICQ should have an effective life of approximately maybe like 3 years. Once you design it, you can continue to use it. So during which the updating will be necessary. You will need to add, you will need to remove some questions and like, because your organization or your client too is upgrading, so there will be changes. Some question will not be needful again, and some question will be highly necessary, which you've not been asking before. So you need to review ICQ as often as possible. Let's say every 3 years thereabouts. An ICQ2 should be completed by a senior member of audit staff. Of course, majority of the time, the supervisors, the audit managers, usually we design all this, okay, and we take it to the field to deploy. Observations and selected tests will ensure that the ICQ accurately reflects the strengths and the weaknesses within the procedures that operates day to day. So anything we observe, especially from the response, then we'll be able and try to test whether the information they've given us is accurate, and to what extent is that failure of internal control. Let's say we observe that from the answer, from the feedback of from a high CQ, that this a major area, weakness area, then we need to test, audit test, to determine to what extent is this failure and what impact can it have on the organization. Also, the auditor should not place reliance on controls on the basis of preliminary evaluation. We need to dig deep, and that's why we need to have tests conducted after we had deployed ICQ and responses had been obtained. So I will quickly recap what we've discussed now, and it is important for us to equally note that after now we will be looking at the advantages and disadvantages of internal control questionnaire. And if you are just joining us, being the first time on this platform, we really appreciate you and love that you subscribe, so that anytime we release new video, you will be the first to receive the alerts that a new video is up and uploaded. Okay, so for narrative notes, it is difficult to make note changes in the system because the book or the document becomes rough and the like. Also, preparation of narrative notes for a complex system may take disproportionate time and space and even amount. So ensure that narrative notes are applied to only simple organizational structure and simple organizational control system. Also, it may be difficult to see if a part of the system has been missed out altogether because we are just writing notes. From GJAMES Associate Channel, Gbenga Olatunji FCA, we pride ourselves that we are value to life, we are value to your businesses. Next time, we'll be discussing the disadvantages and the advantages of internal control evaluation questionnaire. From GJAMES Associates, we have value to life, we have value to your businesses.